welcome everyone to our meeting here today. And look, we have the usual membership here, but I would like to say a special welcome to Jim Roddy, City Centre Initiative Manager, who is in attendance today. And today's meeting is a theme on festive season safety in our city and town centres and rural villages. Today's meeting, we will have a presentation by the District Commander, Chief Superintendent Ryan Henderson, and we will receive a presentation by the City Centre Initiative Manager, Jim Roddy. But Dermot, do you just want to take the roll call and then read out the remote statement?
Okay, Morris, I'll just read out the remote statement for the PCSP meeting in public. So I'd like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcast or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council privacy notice may be found on the Council website. So that's just the statement for the remote meeting, and just move it into the roll call for PCSP members. Starting with the elected members, Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Dermot.
Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Mckayla Boyle.
And Shaw Dermot here.
Alderman Morris Devaney.
Here, Dermot.
Councillor Sandra Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Paul Fleming. Alderman Darren Guy.
Here, Dermot.
Alderman Keith Kerrigan. Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Here, Dermot.
And Councillor Martin Riley.
Here, Dermot.
Just moving on to the independent members. Paul Boggs.
Here, Dermot.
Mary Casey. Thomas Conway. Margaret Hall. Una McCartney. Aid McKay.
Here, Dermot.
Jeanette Wark. And Linda Watson.
Here, Dermot.
And finally, our statutory partners. So we have PSNI.
Hi, that's me, Dermot. Thank you.
Okay. Northern Ireland Housing Executive.
Yeah, here, Dermot.
Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service. Justice Agency. Probation Board.
Morning, Dermot. Denise here.
Okay. And Education Authority. That's everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dermot. Is there any apologies sent in at all?
We've received apologies from Mary Casey.
That's
Can I
okay.
make apologies, Chair, for Jeanette Wark? She has the opening of her new centre today and she can't make it, so she asked me to make her apologies.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Apologies
Linda, for
from Eddie Doherty, who's on an alternative meeting from the Housing Executive.
That's everyone's apologies all in now, Dermot.
Yeah.
So we move on the meeting. Look, I have no chair's business, and nobody has spoke to me about chair's business today. So what we will do, without further delay, we'll move into the presentation by the District Commander, Chief Superintendent Ryan Henderson. And just note there, Dermot, that Keith is on the line now. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Okay, Chair, thank you.
Ryan, take it away.
Thanks very much, Morris. Hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear.
Yep.
Morning, everyone, to PCSP colleagues, and a very good morning to those of you who are also watching our meeting online today. It's great to have you on board. As Morris said, my name is Ryan Henderson. I have the privilege of being the Police Area Commander for Derry City and Strabane. I'm delighted to get the chance today to talk about some of our key messages and some of the operational plans that we as the police service have in place to support a safe festive period for those who not only live but work and visit Derry City and Strabane Council area. And can I commend Morris, Dermot and the team for putting this event on today. It's very timely and a good opportunity to hopefully reassure people about the good partnership working that will be taking place over the coming weeks of the festive period. We consider ourselves to be a key partner in helping to improve the well-being and prosperity of the towns and villages across Derry City and Strabane Council area. But of course, the festive period's really important as well for a whole host of reasons, be that being able to spend some time with their family, time away from work, and for the business community, a really critical time in their financial years and for their financial well-being. It's also a time, I think, important to remember where the most vulnerable in our society can become particularly isolated and at risk. I think that's something worth discussing as well. Derry City and Strabane, I think really, we can really pride ourselves on a one team ethos, and PSNI is proud to be an important part of that team. We work hand in glove with partners to promote community safety all year round, not just at Christmas, but recognise just how important the festive period is to civic life across our towns, the city and the villages of Derry City and Strabane. So a partnership effort is really important at this time of year. And in many respects, I consider that we in Derry City and Strabane are actually well ahead of the game in this, in terms of the proactive and preventative partnership approach that we do take to community safety with the Purple Flag initiative, or CCTV, which is comprehensive and I think probably the envy of most. The wardens that we have, our voluntary partners in the search and rescue sphere, and of course our youth workers. I think combined that makes us a real solid team in trying to prevent issues that may arise over the Christmas period and help to keep people safe and feel safe, very importantly, over that time. Could I ask you to move on to the next slide for me, please? Thank you. So to talk more specifically around our PSNI work that we'll be doing, I was very pleased to launch recently with colleagues from PCSP, including Morris and Jim, who'll be chatting later, from the City Centre initiative, our Operation Season's Greetings at what is our fabulous Christmas tree in Guildhall Square, which is, as you can see from there, it's a spectacular part of the incredible City Centre effort in Derry, but I know elsewhere that we have and seen in relation to make the place look really good for Christmas. Operation Season's Greetings, we have been running this from a regional basis in PSNI for a number of years now. It allows me and my team to bring not just our resources to support the community safety across the festive period, but also those that are more specialist and regional, such as our roads policing units, our tactical support units, our safer transport team, our interceptor teams, to name but a few, and all of those will be playing a part in helping to keep people safe over the coming weeks within Derry City and Strabane. The main aim of Operation Season's Greetings is to maximise visibility and offer public reassurance by being in prime locations at busy times and promoting those relevant operations through the use of our social media platforms. As I move through the slides today, the images that you'll see will be those that will be going out in our social media platforms. We've been really fortunate over years to build up a pretty comprehensive following on social media, so we think it's a really good opportunity to show what we're doing and also help to reinforce some of the important messages around Season's Greetings. If you move on to the next slide for me, thanks. So Season's Greetings focuses on a number of themes. You'll see Christmas there, looking at cyber security, home security, road safety, socialising safety, and a range of other themes across seasons greetings, and there'll be a range of messages going out in relation to those. I chose over the next number of minutes just to focus on some of those that I think are particularly important for us to discuss and to get out in terms of important points over this festive period. So if you'd move to the next slide for me. I make no apologies really for starting with the issue of domestic abuse. It's easy when we think about the work that we do around the festive period and how it focuses on the outside space, how it focuses on our nightlife activity, how it focuses on helping the traders and to make people feel safe as they're working within our towns and cities. We know that at this time of year, the vulnerable can feel even more isolated, and that we see in domestic abuse, sadly, an upturn in those incidents which are reported. We collectively within PSNI, through our public protection branch and through those officers that we have committed to our multi-agency support hubs, will be focusing very strongly in trying to identify risk and harm from domestic abuse over this period, when most of us will be having time to enjoy time with our loved ones. Others can feel imprisoned in their own homes. Collectively, as partners and as citizens, it's on all of us to be aware of that and to keep our eyes open to that, and to encourage reporting of domestic abuse. We'll also be looking very closely at adverse childhood experiences where we see them, so signs of vulnerability of young people in those domestic settings over the period too. Often at 3 in the morning, we're the first people that see those, and we've trained our officers to trying to understand what else is going on in the room when they're dealing with an incident that maybe isn't so obvious and needs the specialist support of colleagues in health and social care, for example. So we see domestic abuse actually as being something that will be a real focus for us, we know, over this festive period. Next slide, please. Thank you. This one I think is pretty self-explanatory. I know as I was driving away from the station last night at around sort of 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock after the civic carol service, the emergency service carol service, was stopped at one of the checkpoints that we have out over this period to try and detect those that are driving under the influence of drink or drugs. That remains a significant risk, sadly, over the festive period. It'll not escape your attention that every year we see, sadly, high numbers of people caught behind the wheel when they're not safe or fit to do so because of taking drink or drugs. We will be deploying specialist resources from our road policing teams to help support that work on the road, as well as our own officers from within Derry City and Strabane, to try and cut down upon that. And again, we encourage the citizens self-policing around this, planning ahead. We know it can be difficult to get taxis, has been, and that will continue no doubt over the Christmas period. So planning is so important. Don't take the risk, leave the car keys at home, leave the car at home. Next slide, thank you. And again, on the theme of just wanting to show you some of the social media messaging that's gone out there, it's another season's greetings themed slide on safe roads around the issues of speeding, drug driving, using mobile phones, etc. Again, all the things that we will be conducting patrols, carrying out road stops, etc., to try and deter some of those real risks on our roads. And we'll know we've had some tragedies of late here within our own council area, and you'll have seen others across Northern Ireland reported recently on the roads still remain and can be a real danger. Next slide, thank you. So I think very much this is the place that people expect us to emphasise our work over the Christmas period, which is trying to keep our town centres safe, both for those who want to come and enjoy a night out and for those who are shopping or working during the days within, and this will be a real significant part of our policing work over the coming weeks with partners. We of course have the additional factor this year of the COVID, of the pandemic and the new restrictions within licensed premises, particularly around the COVID certification and the already standing requirements around risk assessments, etc., and face coverings. We'll be doing our part in relation to helping to enforce that with visits to licensed premises. Our licensing officer, Paul Larkin, has been working with colleagues in the licensed trade here within our council area to try and help them work through some of that. So you can expect when you're out, when you're ringing the town, if you are using the licensed premises, for the safety of those that are enjoying their time within them, and also for those working within them, we'll be conducting inspections in relation to that compliance around what we have to do in relation to COVID and the restrictions there. You will know, and you will see in our previous campaigns in relation to One Punch, you know, that is something that I think is present certainly as police officers in our minds, that we've seen across our careers too often. Young lives often lost through one reckless act and one punch. And that's one of the things that we really worry about in terms of our town centres at night, and therefore focus our activity in and around licensed premises, fast food joints, etc. When people are leaving them, those tend to be the kind of rubbing point and the risk point around that. We're so well served with CCTV and that really good joined up partnership in the council area that you know, that's a real help around that. But One Punch remains something that we will put a lot of messaging out around, because it is you know, it's tragic when you see how easily a life can be lost through that. I think it's important as well to mention, we have talked about it before, as a PCSP, concerns around drink spiking and drink tampering. We consider that we, together as a group of partners, licensees, public servants, that we create a safe environment in our city centre, and we want people to feel safe in that. PSNI take the issue of drink spiking really seriously. If you're caught doing it, it's a premeditated criminal act, could face up to 10 years in prison. And we've been working really closely with bars and licensees to try and raise awareness of the potential for the issue. We would encourage people to look at the Public Health Agency, have published guidance around this and advice on this on their website. We encourage people to look at that. But the prime thing for us, if that you're feeling unduly or overly affected by a sense of being unwell, of the symptoms that are suggesting I feel a lot more intoxicated than the alcohol that I've had, then please tell someone. Please get yourself checked by a medical practitioner, and please report it to the police so that we can investigate in relation to that. But for us, it's very much about being preventative in this. And within Derry City and Strabane Council area, we and partners have been working really closely to create an environment where you can feel safe coming to socialise within our licensed premises. And you will see over this period our nightlife activity, which is the operations that we put in place every weekend, bolstered over this period to try and support a good, safe towns and city centres. Next slide, thank you. And of course, for our business community, it's really important that we are supporting them to stay safe over the festive period. That we're trying to help them mitigate vulnerability from shoplifting, from other crimes that they can be vulnerable to, and also that potentially people can be vulnerable to when they are shopping. That's something that we seek to prevent, and actually something that we try and reduce people's sense of worry about that by having a strong, visible policing presence at those key times that I mentioned earlier to try and help protect against that. Thank you. Next slide. So hopefully to conclude, that gives you a sense of what Operation Seasons Greetings is, gives you a good sense of some of the key themes that we'll be focusing upon, namely focusing on those most vulnerable who may be at risk of further isolation over the festive period, at further risk. We'll be focusing upon our roads to make sure that those people aren't getting behind the wheel through drink or drugs. We'll be focusing on our nighttime economy, along with partners to make people feel and be safe at our city centre. We'll be seeking to support our retailers and those coming to work in our or coming to shop and within our town and city centre over this festive time. So that brings my presentation to a conclusion. Maurice, can I thank you for giving me the time to chat that through, and I'd like to wish those online and those at the meeting a very merry festive period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for that very comprehensive presentation. And I'm going to take the two presentations. I will ask Jim to present his presentation now, the City Centre Initiative Manager, and then I will open it up the floor then to ask any questions and see has any questions been lodged with Dermot by the public. So, Jim, take it away.
Thank you, Maurice, and thanks for this opportunity to talk to the PCSP members this morning. I'm probably going to double up an awful lot on what Ryan has said, but it's the very nature of the partnerships that we have. So apologies if we do cut across. I'll probably go into some more detail on some things, but generally the message will be very similar. Next slide, please, Paul. Firstly, I'm going to talk about our CCTV. As Ryan had said earlier, it's the envy of most areas. Indeed, I've been asked by other councils and other bids to talk about how we operate our CCTV in this city and district and how the partnership emanated. So basically, we first got CCTV in the year 2000. It was operated solely by City Centre Initiative as an independent body, and it is totally independent of police or any other statutory agency. And initially, what we had was 28 cameras that operated 18 hours a day. But as technology changed and as regulation changed, we realised that we had to change as well. So in 2015, we agreed a new service level agreement with Derry City and Strabane District Council, the PSNI and the Executive Office, and new structures were put in place. Now, CCI still manage all the data, basically, so all the images recorded will be managed by CCI and any access to them will be through CCI, and it can't be gained any other way unless police deem under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act there's evidence there that needs to be gathered. We now employ the services of a company for monitoring and maintenance. We operate 24 hours a day, and we have 96 cameras across the city centre and Strabane town centre. Now, the main changes with those cameras and how they grew so exponentially was the installation of cameras along our riverfront, the installation of cameras in Strabane town centre, the installation of cameras on Boyle Bridge as well. These cameras are invaluable to the operation of the city centre, especially when people are in a vulnerable way. And none of this happens in isolation. Quite a few of our partnerships would be in contact with our CCTV operators, which I'll talk about later on. All the cameras are less than 5 years old. Our revenue funders, our ongoing funding is provided by Derry City and Strabane District Council through the PCSP, PSNI and the Executive Office. Now, this new arrangement has been in place since 2015, and to date, since June 2015, as of this morning, we've had 28,882 incidents. That's an average of 375 incidents a month. That may seem very busy, and it is very busy, and that's between missing persons, vulnerable adults, anything else that you can think of. We have a range of different categories, from welfare concerns, criminal damage, public order, burglary, theft, from unsafe buildings and health and safety. Quite a few incidents that we record at all times. But undoubtedly, the main emphasis of CCTV is to keep people safe, and it's working very effectively, and I say working great partnership. Next slide, please, Paul. So in 2010, we were introduced to the idea of applying for Purple Flag. Purple Flag is an award that's accredited by the Association and Town Centre Management, and basically it's about creating a vibrant nighttime economy, and showing it doesn't happen by accident. It's about innovation, curation, planning, and partnership, and all the key elements that leaves our city centre a destination. And how does it work? By meeting and surpassing all the standards that one would normally expect. And again, all of this is done through very, very strong partnerships that Ryan talked about earlier. There are 5 different elements to Purple Flag. One is about creating a policy envelope. That's an after-hours policy, which shows it as a clear strategy based on sound research, integrated public policy, and successful multi-sector partnership. Again, I'll talk about the partnership very shortly. It's about creating a successful destination that's safe and welcoming, with all sectors playing a part in delivering high standards of customer care. It's about getting home safely after evening out, which is crucial, as is the ability to move around the city centre on foot with ease. Again, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, because obviously post-COVID, there have been some changes to that. It's about creating a successful destination that offers a vibrant choice of leisure, entertainment, and for a diversity of ages and groups, for lifestyles and cultures. And most importantly, again, it's about creating a place where people can feel comfortable coming to, and having an urban design that's good for the nighttime economy, good lighting, good wayfinding, etc., etc. All of those things are the measurables. They're not all going to be met 100% of the time, but it's how we work towards creating those places where people feel happy in coming to. We were awarded Purple Flag for the first time in 2011, and we have retained it ever since. We are the longest standing Purple Flag in Northern Ireland, and Purple Flag is now run both throughout the UK, Ireland, and in some places in Europe. It's been taken up internationally. So Purple Flag is so vitally important for us, how we see moving forward, keep people safe. Next slide, people. Access and egress, as I spoke about, one major factor in Purple Flag, and especially at this time of the year, getting people to our city centre in a safe way and getting them home in a safe way. Well, as most people on the call will know, there has been an introduction of late night buses from the Department for Infrastructure and TransLink, and they've been operating on Friday and Saturday nights from the 26th of November, and they will last up until next weekend. Basically, our last bus out of the city centre is at midnight, going to such areas as Craigan, Hazelbank, Ballinrogordy, Earhart, Colmore Road, Cairnhill, Slievemore, Shantallow, Colmore, Limavady Road, Crescent Link, Irish Street, and new buildings. This is particularly welcome this year, in line with the decrease in taxi operators that we have post-COVID. We're working very, very closely with the Northwest Taxi Proprietors Association and others to lobby DFI to help them to create a better way of getting taxi operators licensed. There's a very difficult process that potential taxi operators have to go through, and working with Northwest Taxi Proprietors Association and the main taxi companies, we're trying to work with the DFI to ensure that we can increase the numbers of taxi operators we have at night. Obviously, with a lack of taxis at night, we have to be very careful as well with people who could be marauding at night to try and pick people up. One of the very important things for our CCTV operators is when we see people hanging about at night, and they're getting into cars. We're very mindful that we want to see taxis that are liveried, because it gives a good indication that people are getting into bona fide taxis. No, we're not seeing any real trend yet that would be a way that what we used to call bandit taxis marauding our city centre at night. But we know that this used to be the case in years gone by. We've worked very, very hard with all the other agencies to ensure that we have properly operating taxis in our nighttime economy, and we desperately want to make sure that we maintain that standard. Next slide, please, Paul. The retail offering, the daytime economy in the city centre at this time of the year is so vitally important, especially again post-COVID, given everything that our retailers have gone through, our independent retailers and our national retailers. It's so important that through the partnerships that we have, we ensure that we minimise the criminal activity that happens within our retail offering in the city centre. In conjunction with Operation Season's Greetings and the fact that Ryan has dedicated so many officers to our city centre in the daytime, it is helping reassure retailers that if there are any incidents of retail crime, shoplifting gangs or anything like that, they will be dealt with very, very quickly. Our city centre officers would be in touch with the CCTV operators at all time. So if we get any calls or radio messages from any shop or shopping centre in the city centre, they say there's a suspected shoplifters about, we're very quickly onto the police, and they would deploy officers very, very quickly to try and ensure that we stamp this out. Thankfully, this year so far, we haven't had any major incidents of this, and over this last 2 weeks now, it's vitally important we stay on top of that. Just on the retail offering, I think it's important to mention our most recent vacancy audit shows there's about 12.8% vacancy within our city centre. That's slightly less than the Northern Ireland average. It's gone up slightly, ever so slightly since before COVID. Our vacancy rates have been falling, but the big indicator here will be post-April when business rates come back on stream. That's going to be a real watershed for a lot of our businesses. We hope that businesses can maintain their presence in a very strong way. Indications are that they have been trading very, very well in this quarter. Those were backed up by the report from the Ulster Bank earlier on this week of how strong retail has been, and we just hope that grows. On the slide, you'll see two of the new shops that have opened in Boyle, Fraser's and Waterstones after we lost Easton's and Topshop and some others. It was great to get the confidence back into the shopping centre. And I believe from talking to Fergal, Boyle is very, very soon to be back at full capacity. It's almost there at the moment, but it's very soon to be back at full capacity, which obviously is great for a city centre. Next slide, please, Paul. The evening nighttime economy, and I touched on this when it came to Purple Flag. It's been a really, really stressful time for our hotels, our restaurants, our cafes, our bars. COVID has wreaked havoc on our evening time economy. It's been up and down, I guess, this year more than last year. Our hotels opening again. It was quite a strange piece of business this year for hotels, whereby the large tour companies hadn't booked in advance. A lot of our hotels would rely on rooms being booked up early and in advance by tour companies, but because people hadn't been visiting from afar, traveling from America or anywhere else around the world to come to visit the city, we weren't getting the tour companies booking into the rooms in the hotels. We were, however, and we have seen a dramatic increase in the local trade. Lots of people from throughout the island, and indeed these two islands, have been travelling to Derry to visit the city. And our hotels have reported really strong trading throughout the year, and it's been really good to hear. Again, on the flip side of that, those hotels who were looking forward to a really good Christmas with lots of Christmas parties have found that a lot of those parties have been cancelled in recent days. because of the new variant of COVID-19 that's come out, and just because people are generally frightened with all the media reports, and it's quite understandable. Office parties been cancelled and individual parties been cancelled. So that's been a blip for our hotels, those who operate the Christmas dinners, etc. But generally accommodation has been working very well. Our bars, it's been again really difficult, and just yesterday we had the introduction of COVID passports. So basically, if you're going to any of our bars or restaurants now, you have to show your COVID passport. Any of the on-trade people I've been speaking in this city have reacted very positively about how they're going to operate this. They do understand. They don't want the spread of COVID to get any worse. They don't want to see any further lockdowns. They don't want to see any of the hospitality industry closed. They don't underestimate how hard it's going to be to do this. But as we've seen from our hospitality industry in this city in particular, they were the first to close down when the COVID scare came on us way back last March, and they are behaving responsibly this time around. There always will be people who will try and abuse this, and we'll be working very, very closely with Ryan and his team and our evening-time economy industry to try and ensure that common sense is brought to bear here and that people look after each other in the days, weeks and months ahead. Next slide, please. So our partnerships, this is probably the strongest area that City Centre operate in. It's building those partnerships and maintaining them. In the daytime and evening time economy, we work with the youth service providers, First Housing, community safety wardens, the PSNI, even nighttime economy staff, Boyle Search and Rescue, Boyle Prevention Team, retail shops, shopping centres, who all would be in contact with our CCTV operators to try and ensure that we operate a safe city centre. We're very proud that we work on the basis that we try and keep our city centre totally free from rough sleepers. Now, we have seen people come to our city and rough sleeping and doing some begging during the daytime and even in the evening time as well. But with our partners, we've been able to provide accommodation, clothing, and food for anybody who would come across there. And again, working with First Housing and our community safety wardens and the PSNI in particular, we have been able to mitigate any issues that we have around that. We don't want anybody sleeping rough on our streets. We don't want anybody in danger on our streets. I'm working closely with the Northern Housing Executive. We've been able to manage to find accommodation for anybody that we come across. It's a very, very strong partnership, and it's one that works very, very well. We don't really go out and talk about it very much. We're very aware that anybody presenting as a rough sleeper is vulnerable, and we don't want to expose that vulnerability anymore. But I can assure everybody on this call this morning, it's something that we dedicate an awful lot of time to, and we want to make sure that we look after anybody who presents as a rough sleeper. The Education Authority, the youth service providers who work throughout the city centre do a marvellous job with some young people. Young people gravitate towards the city centre, and sometimes some of these young people can be very vulnerable as well. Sometimes they're here just to mix, sometimes they're up there, but I know goods. They do what we probably all have done growing up. But the work that John Lynch and their team do with these young people is second to none. And the fact that they're there working in partnership with the rest of us is a great credit to all the care and attention they give to the young people of the city. Boyle Search and Rescue and Boyle Prevention Team in particular do so much work around vulnerable people. I was going to say vulnerable adults here, but people of all ages who present along our riverfront. And in collaboration with CCTV and the PSNI, the response rate for anybody presenting as vulnerable along our riverfront is second to none. And as Ryan said, is the envy of many different places. There's so much work that goes on in the prevention of more harm to people who present as vulnerable in our city centre. It's not done in isolation. It's done totally in partnership and people working together. We have many meetings throughout the year. We talk about this on a daily basis. We work very closely with the concern hub, and any issues that come up, we try and get on top of them straight away. Such an issue came up a number of weeks ago, as Ryan spoke about earlier, and that was the issue of drink spiking. So again, with the police and the hospitality, Ulster and Eventide economy operators, and indeed A&E or ED as it's known, we pulled together a conference. We were hoping to do it face-to-face conference, but again, with the growth of the new variant of COVID-19, we had to do it over Zoom. So a fortnight ago, we hosted a meeting about the possibility of people getting their drinks spiked. We had staff, we had managers, we had owners of the eating time establishments at the meeting. We had people from the emergency department talking about how they would like people being presented to them and the work that they do. We had crime prevention officers on speaking to those who work in the eating time economy about what they need to do around this and how the eating time economy staff should operate in this and what they should do. We also had crime investigators on talking about their needs. If anybody is presented with a spiked drink, how they're going to investigate that crime and how the initial reaction of those people who work in the industry can help them investigate that crime as well. And all of this, of course, is to ensure that when people come to our city centre, they remain safe and they can go home safe and they've had a good time. Folks, that's my presentation for this morning. Like Ryan, I'm here to answer any questions that anybody has, but also at this stage, just to wish everybody a very happy and peaceful and enjoyable Christmas and New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for that very detailed presentation. I think when you look across the two presentations, it shows the good work that is going on behind the scenes. As you say, Jim, it isn't boasted about, it works away behind the scenes. And look, and when you see that good work and collaboration and, you know, working together, it does work. And it shows both to Jim and Ryan here that there is a strong partnership out there to deliver safety within our towns and villages. And, you know, when we look at the purple flag, I think that is in the back of that, all that collaboration and good work that goes on behind the scenes. And to me, that is why we've got able to achieve a purple flag. And as I say, a lot of good work goes on behind the scenes and it has to be welcomed. And Ryan and Jim have mentioned quite a number of issues there. And I'm going to move on now to Dermot to see if we have any written questions received.
No written questions received through social media or through email, Chair. So just any general questions from PCSP members.
Just want to check the chat box. Alderman McClintock.
Thanks, Chair. And it's not actually a question. I just wanted to thank both Ryan and Jim for their presentation. I think it was very informative. We often think of all the issues regarding safety that happen outside the home, but I think it's good to be reminded again just that so much can happen within the home, the domestic violence and the issues with children as well. And I think it's something that many of us are inclined to maybe not come across as often as other things. I think the strength of the two presentations was the whole issue of partnership working and the multi-agencies that are involved in keeping us safe. And I think not only the agencies, the emergency service, it's all our interdependency on each other. The taxi drivers, the transport, and all those other people that Jim in particular listed there on one of those last slides. And I think we are all dependent on each other and working together. I think the fact that we have achieved the purple flag status is a tribute to what all of you working together have done. And I think it's something that you can be rightly proud of. And I think it's something that we need to keep reminding ourselves, we do want our city to and our district to be safe and welcoming to visitors. And I think with all of you working together, I think we are a long way to achieving that. A quote or a name of a film came into my mind just during the presentation. I don't know where I dragged this up from, but there's a film I think a long time ago about while a city sleeps. And I just thought, while a city sleeps, there's so much going on in the background to keep us safe that sometimes we don't really appreciate. And even the fact that you mentioned that the 96 cameras and the massive number of incidents, I think it was 375 in a month. There's so much going on there, but it's really just, I don't have, as I say, any questions. I just want to pay tribute to the combined work of all of you and just to thank you for it, and just to take this opportunity of wishing everybody a very happy Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary, for that. Our next speaker is Councillor Martin Riley.
Thanks, Chair, for bringing me in, and like the previous speaker, just thanks to Ryan and to Jim for the presentation this morning. I suppose it's similar in the vein of Hilary, and I don't necessarily have direct questions on it, but I want to emphasise the partnership approach that's there underpinning both presentations about how the city can work together. And I suppose it's not just about the city working at night, it's about then getting the city back up and running again for the next day, and part of that obviously is the work that the council does in terms of its cleansing operation to have the city looking sparkling again the next morning for visitors that are up and about in the early morning of the night after the night before. I suppose in relation to a question, like the council previously at full council passed a motion tabled by my colleague Councillor Sina Bar about an evening and night task force, and I hope that both Jim and Ryan and the other organisations get involved in that evening task force. It was passed unanimously through the chamber, and I think that if we can feed in to our task force the likes of what Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon have done in our council area about trying to strategise and plan for the evening economy on a 5-year basis, involving not just the city centre but the other town centres and other locations within our council area, about how we can strengthen the evening economy right across the council area, I think is very important. But just to thank both of you for the presentation, and as Hilary has said, at this time of year, the domestic violence issue is certainly to the fore of the minds of the elected members on the PCSP. It has been for a number of years. So again, good to see, Ryan, in your presentation touching on the importance of that and people feeling that they can report it and that they should report it, and that yourself and your colleagues in the PSNI are there to help address that at this time of year and all year round. But we know obviously at Christmas the figures do spike up. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, for that. Does Jim or Ryan want to just come in on that issue that Councillor Riley has raised there? No, happy. Go ahead.
Martin, yeah, really happy to get involved in any discussions that help the town and city centres in terms of safety, absolutely. So yeah, welcome any involvement in that, of course.
Thank you, Ryan. Our next speaker is Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and I'd just like to start off by thanking Ryan and Jim for their presentations. Very informative. Look, obviously, taxiing, I'll talk about it. It has become a major problem with numbers of taxi drivers about the town. Thankfully, the night bus should alleviate some of those problems. However, myself and colleagues in the taxi industry have noticed an increase in the return of bandits. To a point where we even see now on social media people advertising their services that they'll be available Friday, Saturday and Sunday nights if anyone's looking to pick up. So maybe if we just keep an eye on that. I know that they ran a very successful campaign a few years ago where they approached people as they were getting out of cars, if you remember, around the diamond, and then they were able to stop them and exiting the diamond through different streets around the town centre, and then given the opportunity to actually go legal, which I think worked very well at the time. And obviously now with the fact that the Department for Infrastructure is offering to pay people's costs to start up taxiing, then maybe it could benefit us all. But look, thanks again for it all, and definitely with the domestic violence, we always unfortunately see a rise at this time of year, which no one likes to see, but if we can maybe keep on top of it and help out in any way we can. Also, and talk of the nighttime economy. Now, Jim, myself, we discussed this here last week, and there was the motion that was brought to council. I think it was a bit, let's say, but could be off-putting for people coming into the town when they hear that sort of thing. Yes, we do need to improve the nighttime economy and try and, you know, get people out at night, and they do feel safe in our city. I witness it all the time. Our city isn't an unsafe city to walk about in at night. People enjoy going out, and there's very, very little problems at all, which I witness. And that's working all through the weekends, you know, it's the same as every, but I just think we, as elected representatives, we need to be careful about the way we portray things in the media and so on, because it can put people off. But thanks again.
Thank you, Alderman Guy, for that there. Look, I do take on board your comments, and probably it's around the media footage that appeared in some of our papers about the city not being safe. Look, we've had discussions on around this. Look, the message coming from today's meeting is very, very clearly that the city is safe. And Ryan, you just take on board the issue about the illegal taxis that has been mentioned here. Our next speaker is Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And apologies, I'm not going to put on my video because I'm at home with COVID. So I'm going to just keep the camera off. It's better for us all. I would like to start off by welcoming the fact that this is a public meeting. We have been looking for a public meeting for quite some time. Unfortunately, it is still over this virtual format. But that's where we're at with it. But it's good to get it out there in the public domain and allow the public to interact, send in questions, or to even just watch the proceedings as they go on. So that's a welcome move. Can I thank Ryan and Jim for their presentations? I have to say they were really informative, and you have covered most of the aspects of what we probably would like to know about keeping our city, our towns and our communities safe over this Christmas period and beyond. I think that Darren has actually touched on a lot of things that I absolutely agree with, Darren, in terms of our city centre as a safe space. And I think we do need to be careful around sensationalising and portraying it as somewhere that is not safe to go and socialise, because I think that has further knock-on effects for our city and district. So completely agree with you in that. In terms of the presentation, I want to just congratulate the work that is ongoing and the partnership work in terms of our communities and throughout the year. Our wardens, our community safety teams, and the neighbourhood teams work really well together to ensure that our communities are kept safe. People know who they can contact, who they should be contacting if there's an issue, and they get a good response from that. So I have to congratulate all that work that's ongoing. Jim, probably just a comment on the CCTV and the work that goes on there. It's tremendous work. And in terms of our city with very vulnerable people, sometimes congregating around certain areas, the CCTV and the partnership working really goes such a long way in keeping our citizens safe. So congratulations. And I have to say, the CCTV operators at times probably see things that would be really distressing to us all. So I want to pay a particular word of thanks to them in terms of the work that they do. The bandits, absolutely, Darren, I've seen that too, particularly on social media over the last couple of weeks, with people going on a Thursday, Friday, saying that they're available and this is my number and give me a call. So that really does need to be looked at and picked up on. I'm glad to see that work is ongoing in terms of getting new taxi drivers on the road. It is something that we have really seen become an issue over the course of the past year. So hopefully we can make progress in that. Ryan, probably my question is to yourself, and it's probably wider than just Christmas, but it's in relation to road safety, and it's been something that I have been working on for quite some time. But we have seen, particularly over the last couple of weeks, a number of tragedies on our roads. And I know that, you know, we have the campaigns around drink driving and stuff like that coming up to the festive period. But where I live and represent is the Ballyarnett ward. And what we see here is we have a lot of back roads, which are border roads. We seen an incident 2 weeks ago where a car left the road and landed in an elderly lady's garden, hitting her house. This is an ongoing issue, and I've been working with DFI Road Service in relation to safety measures and stuff and around it. But in terms of yourselves and patrols, and maybe even in terms of that sort of cross-border campaigns around it, what sort of work is ongoing around that? Because this isn't a Christmas problem, this is an everyday problem. And I know that the residents living around this area are really concerned around it. So if I could just ask that question, Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy, for that. Ryan, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thanks, Sandra, for the question. Well, you only have to look at the headlines in recent weeks, not just in our area, but beyond. There's some real tragedies on the roads, and it feels like, although I'm not sure what the statistics say, but it feels like it's been really prevalent over the past couple of months of fatalities on the roads, with a whole range of causal factors for them. Across the PSNI, we're doing and continue analytical work to see are there any particular themes within that, or particular localities, roads, for example, that we'll then focus patrolling on through our road policing colleagues, supported by our own work locally. And you'll have seen some of our own local teams out with the speed detection devices, etc. Very happy to see what further work that we can do locally with you in terms of particular places you may think are hotspots, to make sure we're in and around those at the right time. Work with colleagues in Garda Síochána is pretty much daily business for us. We have very good connections there, and we do a number of coordinated operations around road stops, etc. Together. So that's ongoing. We've had as well, I always worry about this time of year, it's connected to the roads, is the use is organised crime, gangs travel cross-border and across the island to commit crime. So we have been utilising specialist resources such as the interceptor teams and others to try and disrupt that activity. I'm going to touch wood here. Fortunately, we have been able to keep a handle on that within our council area. We have seen some challenges down and around Newry and Armagh, but we've had some success here around that. So a range of things we try and do, Sandra, but you know, you're right to highlight some of the tragedies we've seen that are on our rural roads in particular, and happy for locally to see if you feel there's more we can do and where we can do it.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. And our next speaker is Councillor Mckayla Boyle.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Ryan and Jim for the presentation, and to yourself, Chair, and the work that yourself and Dermot have been doing throughout the year on the PCSP. I suppose I'll try and be brief. Ryan, my area is in and around domestic violence and abuse, and we do now have the new coercive control legislation in place since March, and obviously that'll bring us in line with other jurisdictions. But I think it's safe to say that from the 1st of January 2020 right through to December 2020, we had the highest ever rates recorded since COVID began of domestic violence. There was a lot of increased calls to PSNI within that year. So I suppose just in regards to all the good work that's going on in and around that piece of legislation, to ensure that the public are aware of it and what they need to do in terms of reporting. I think that's probably where my question will come from. I've read a lot of reports, particularly around the Criminal Justice Inspectorate, who are saying, you know, that the delivery of better services and outcomes for families and victims need to be enacted, coming out of all the recommendations out of that report and indeed the legislation. So I suppose the challenge is effective partnership working from all the agencies so that victims can access the proper services. So I think the question probably is, you know, in regards to yourselves as a PSNI, what measures specifically will you be undertaken over the Christmas period to protect women from all forms of gender-based violence, and what social support and advocacy and preventative measures will you be putting in place or advising to victims of domestic violence and coercive control to bring about successful cases, particularly around the new coercive control legislation. And I suppose just to thank the good work that's ongoing, and I see that through the PSNI Domestic and Independent Advisory Group, the effective partnership that's working there. So just to compliment yourselves on that good work, and maybe just to get an update and use the opportunity here, get an update from Dermot on where the new community safety wardens are for Strabane area, Sperrin, thank you, and Derg, sorry. So thanks everybody, and happy Christmas, and I hope it's a safe, happy and peaceful one. Thank you.
Hi, Mars. I think you're on mute there, Mars. But Mckayla, I'll.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. You can read my lips.
Yeah, thank you. Mckayla, thanks for the question. And I hope you saw it. It was my first slide, because for me, I just feel it's such an important issue for us as a society in terms of domestic abuse and those hidden harms, and more broadly, violence against women and girls is clearly something that we all collectively are placing focus on. That's why when I talk about the city centre and our town centres, is about creating that safe environment that will in turn make it a safe environment for women and girls to feel comfortable to come and socialise in, free from being harassed and free from incidents like drink spiking. So I think that's one really important part of it. And in terms of domestic abuse, it's doing more of the same, and then trying to learn from the new legislation how we can help support victims better around this. I think in terms of the partnership again here in Derry City and Strabane area, we are well ahead of the game. So we have incredible network of support from the range of advocacy groups, Women's Aid to name one, and of course many others working within the city and beyond. We think that partnership is so invaluable, because we know how difficult it can be for a range of reasons why it's difficult to report that you're a victim of domestic abuse. It's difficult at times to pick up the phone and call the police. And my plea, and you know, I worked as a detective superintendent in our public protection branch, so I've seen this, you know, so closely firsthand over a range of years, just the impact of it. You know, please come forward and speak to the range of people who can help support you to then come forward and pursue criminal justice and justice for yourself, for your family, and for potential future victims of violence from the perpetrator. We're in a great position now that the domestic and sexual violence advocacy scheme is now up and running. So we have that network across Northern Ireland, and we're working to get an advocate based within in one of our stations here. That is going to be great as well. It gives that, you know, absolute straight from report support and to victim when they come forward. We're really keen to be absolutely involved in the Family Justice Centre when that gets up and running within the city. I think that's going to be another great opportunity to create a safe place and a safe environment for victims to come forward. We've got the legislation in place now, which has been fantastic. We've been waiting for it for so long because it recognises just how manipulative and underhand domestic abusers can be, and it's not simply physical violence, it's so much more than that, and the legislation helps us to do that. I think it will take time through the courts, through our own learning, through as a society, how we take advantage of that legislation to make the most of it, Mckayla. But it's absolutely top of my team's and the PSNI's priority list is how we support victims of domestic abuse.
Councillor Boyle, are you happy enough with that response?
Yeah, I am indeed, Chair. Thank you, and thanks to Ryan for that response.
Thank you very much, Mckayla. And our next indicated speaker is Paul Boggs.
Thanks, Chair. And just as Oler started out as well, can I thank Ryan and Jim for their presentations, both really, really informative. And kind of just pick up on what Jim said firstly about, the fact that businesses are just getting back on their feet, and it's great to see them doing so well, and that, they're definitely benefiting from being back open and people being back out and about again. But just in that vein, can I condemn the damage that was done to businesses, several businesses in Strabane town, not last weekend, but the weekend before. I spoke to one of the business owners whose business came under attack and was damaged as a consequence, and business owners and the public generally are angry about it. So I don't, at the harshest of times, that's what businesses are waking up to then on a Monday morning. And in that instance, that their property was damaged and the costs that come along with rectifying that. So just to condemn that, and thank Jim for the information, his presentation around businesses and how they're coping. Can I just ask then, Ryan, I know you've talked a lot, and Jim as well, about the purple flag and all the rest, but can I talk just in relation specifically to Strabane, about what measures are being put in place over the Christmas period for the town centre and even the rural towns particularly. I know the city is important, but so are the smaller towns and the rural towns. Yep. So what measures are being put in place there, particularly in and around the nighttime economy, to make sure that it's safe? I know we've touched on taxis and all the rest, and people waiting about maybe longer for getting lifts home. So what measures are being put in place there? And then secondly, just if you don't mind, Ryan, you opened talking about partnership working. So can I just ask, particularly around keeping young people safe over the Christmas period while they're out and about? And Jim referred to it as well about the young people doing things that all the rest of us did. So, but just particularly young people over the Christmas period, what partnership you've been involved in, again, particularly maybe around Strabane town, and keeping those young people safe with outside partners and agencies as well. So thanks.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Ryan?
Hi, Paul. Thanks very much for the question, and absolutely just want to reassure you that Operation Season's Greeting it's not just for the city of Derry, it's for Strabane and our rural communities who equally need to feel safe and want to feel safe over Christmas. So absolutely, the patrolling that I've talked about in the presentation, the additional resources and specialist support, all of that is available to and is being utilised across our council area. The vulnerabilities that you highlighted around young people is one again that's sort of close to my heart. There's a number of worries that I have around the festive period. One of those is particularly young people who are at risk of child sexual exploitation. A number of the things that you highlight there in terms of gathering in certain places, maybe not getting home as quickly as they should get home, being less visible, if there are less visible guardians present, etc., which has been something that COVID has been one of the difficulties, is that the many eyes that were helping to support young people, there's less of those around. So we have emphasised pretty heavily in Derry City and Strabane from the policing perspective in terms of training for officers, is understanding about kind of childhood trauma, what else is going on here in this young person that might be presenting you in an angry way, or a way that they're frustrated, actually probably not going on there. And we're well connected to our colleagues in social care and in youth services through the multi-agency support hub as a really good way of identifying those young people and trying to get the best solutions to them. So there's a specific cohort there that I am always concerned around how we're identifying and supporting them as a group of partners, because there's a range of factors going on there, and particularly over the festive period, then that's heightened for me once more for all the reasons that you have outlined. More generally than that, in terms of areas where young people are gathering, etc., that will again feature into our patrolling, so that our our neighbourhood teams are well connected and have a good sense of where that is happening. So in terms of young people, Paul, those are some of the key things that we're thinking about each day in relation to that. And then more generally, as I say, Operation Seasons Greeting is absolutely for the whole of our council area.
Thank you, Ryan, for that. Are you content,
Thanks, Ryan.
Paul?
Yeah, happy enough with that, Chair. And just to make the point to Ryan, that agencies and the police have the support of the community. While it might seem to young people like it's breaking up fun and whatever else, whenever those areas that they're gathering are being patrolled, it is just for their safety. So thanks for your response. And Chair, can I just wish everybody as well a happy, healthy and safe Christmas as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul, for that. Our last speaker on the list is Linda Watson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Jim and Ryan for the presentations. I suppose I'm going back a wee bit to the getting the kids home at night. And I know I've been on the PCSP quite a while, and Jim, I know yourself and Dermot and that in different groups have looked at, dedicated taxi spaces and places like that. It just hasn't worked out. But this year, I think it's really noticeable on social media how many young people looking for lifts home. So what I wanted to ask you, Jim, was how well is the bus service working? Is it well used? Because I know a lot of kids don't go home at 12 o'clock at night. And, so I suppose I wanted to know if it is working well, do you think it's something that you could talk to TransLink about, maybe extending at weekends, coming into the new year?
Thank you, Linda, and through Morris. Linda, you're right. We've worked at this for such a long time, and the bus service is working okay, Linda. But you're quite right. Most of the young people are, especially anyone from 18 onwards up to mid-20s, early 30s, probably just don't want to go home at 12 o'clock. They probably want to stay out longer. So, and the fact that the bus service is only running on Friday and Saturday nights, and it's 12 o'clock, it's not going to capture all those who we need to capture. We need to do the work, as Darren talked about, back with the DFA and getting the taxi cohort back up to the actual numbers that we used to have. It's not unique to our city centre. This is right across the piece. Belfast is experiencing exactly the same difficulties. In fact, maybe even worse. The large operators there are telling us they're down as much as maybe 40% on drivers. And it's the age of our drivers. It's the risk they're putting themselves at. It's the risk that they may be bringing back into their household as well. It's not that people have willingly walked away from the industry, but what we need to do is grow that industry, make it more, make it more regulatory. As Darren said, we have a growth in bandits. We know that this could come around the corner. Vitally important if we all work with each other. I would rather see those young people come home in a properly regulated taxi than some carriage just pull them up and they don't know who they're going home with. Quite often they might have a few drinks in them. Sometimes they don't even know how they got home. And that can be a very vulnerable position for anybody. Man, woman, boy, girl, doesn't matter. And it's so vitally important we keep up our work and make sure that we get our cohort of taxis back to the number that we had before. I would appeal to anybody that if they know people operating illegally, report them. Let's deal with this. Don't let us get a grip, and then before we know it, we're actually out of control. There was very successful operations that Darren talked about a few years ago. Those operations were done very, very much in partnership, like we do everything in this city. But it's all focused on protecting all of those people who want to come out and enjoy themselves in our city. And obviously young people are a mainstay in that, and we have to make sure that we look after them. If those buses were really going to work well, then the short answer is they would need to be later, and there would need to be more nights of the week. At the moment, I think, to be fair, the department has dipped its toe in the water to have a look. I think it's once they finish next weekend, I think after Christmas we have to sit down and reassess what has gone on, find out if it can be extended, and see how it's operated. I haven't had any negative reports. Normally, if there's anything difficult happens on the buses or whatever, we would get negative reports straight away. But none of that whatsoever. But going home at 12 o'clock at night, you're certainly not going to capture the large numbers of young people who are out in the city centre. But we need to keep it under scrutiny, Linda. We need to keep working together on it. Keep working with Ryan. Keep working with DVLA and all the taxi operators to ensure that we make sure that everybody that's coming to our city centre and leaving our city centre can do so in a safe way. Chair, if you don't mind, I just want to make a comment on something we've said earlier, a couple of comments. Well, I want to thank Sandra for highlighting the issue of our CCTV operators. I know yourself, Chair, and Darren would be on our board, and we talk about this practically at every meeting. Some of the stuff that the guys and girls have to go through. They are a tribute to their profession. They do focus very, very much on the health and safety and well-being of everybody that's within the footprint of CCTV. And quite often, they save people from injury or worse, even death. And that can be traumatic. So look, Sandra, thank you for your comments. I'd certainly pass them on, and I know they'll be very greatly received. And finally, just on a comment earlier on about what may have been said to the media before about our city centre not being safe. Again, Maurice, you would know we spoke about this at our board meeting. There's lots of groups work very, very hard to make sure that people coming to our city centre feel safe. It's not true that we close down at 6 o'clock at night. It's not true that people are generally unsafe. It is always going to be true that in the city centre environment, you will have times when things happen that you wish didn't happen. But the secret of our work is working together in partnership. And if things do start to happen, if things do start to be unsafe in any shape, fashion, or form, we all work together to ensure that we turn that around. Thankfully, in recent years, and I'm sure Ryan can attest to this, we have had no major incidents where there's been a growth in crime in our city centre at night time, whether it be physical assaults or anything else. And it's because of the work that we do, and we reevaluate that work at all times. So our city centre is a safe place in comparison to other city centres. It's a safe place for people to come to, and it's a welcoming place, and we want to grow that. And I think it's important, Chair, that I do say that, because it was carried in the media that it wasn't safe, and that just was quite unfair. And for those groups and the people who operate in evening time economy and the groups who work to keep people safe, it was unfair on behalf of them. But look, again, thank you for all the comments that came across this morning. This is a piece of work that's ongoing, and we have to be dynamic. We have to work with each other, and we have to help each other have a really, really safe time when we're in our city and town centres. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jim, for that. Linda, does that answer your question before we move on?
Thanks very much. I just want to, commend everybody for the partnership working that's going on to make it a safe city, and hopefully we continue to work together in the new year. So again, like everybody else, I just want to wish everybody a happy Christmas and hope to see you all in the new year working together again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. And I don't have any other speakers, so I'm going to wrap up. First of all, I would like to thank Ryan and Jim for their presentations, very, very detailed presentations, and the input from our PCSP committee, our board, on the question, very, very valid ones. And, when I look at the totality of the whole thing, all the great work that is carried out in the city is done by strong partnership. And that strong partnership, no matter who it be, I'm not going to name one or the other, but I would ask Jim and Ryan to carry it back to those partnerships. Well done. And we commend the work you do. And, it's that strong partnership, as you say, Jim, when an issue appears, that strong partnership, they work hard together to get the issue resolved. A couple of messages coming out from the season's greetings is, look, our city is safe to come. We want you to come and enjoy our town centres, our villages across the council area. But the ask is here today is for those going out is to plan your event out and plan your way back again. And look, we all have a duty of care if we are out for a bite to eat or maybe a few drinks over the Christmas period. That's very vitally important that we look after each other. And if we do see someone suspicious in a bar or a restaurant or someone suspicious, please report that to the owners or some of the staff. And, you know, by doing that, it keeps everyone safe. And if you're out in company, keep an eye on your friend in case someone happens and look after each other. But look, all that remains for me to say is thank everyone for taking part in the meeting today. And as chair of the PCSP, I would just want to wish everyone a very safe, peaceful and happy Christmas and New Year. And thanks everyone for taking part. Bye now.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good Christmas.
Thanks.
Thank you. Happy Christmas.